Hey, everyone. Welcome to Unique Ways with Thomas Gerard, an audio podcast. Got a really great guest on today. He started learning design at 2 years old on his father's letterpress, and he's been creating ever since, following in his father's footsteps as a second generation design and creative director. Please join me in welcoming Stephen Gates. Welcome.
How you doing? Thanks for having me.
Are you ready for 20 questions?
I am. Let's go.
Great. Question one, tell me a little bit more about yourself. What do you do?
Yeah, I'm a strategist, I'm a designer, I'm a creative director. I think you hit on it a little bit. Followed in my dad's footsteps into advertising, branding, design, all sorts of that stuff. I worked at ad agencies, worked in house, and about 3.5 years ago, started my own design studio called Crazy.
Nice, I love it. If you guys are interested in the 2025 episodes, please check out the big episode with Kareem Rashid. Question two, what's a key piece of knowledge that makes you different?
Um, I would say I think since I've grown up in design, I had the benefit of actually watching my dad's entire career. I think that for me, it's an understanding that creativity is a blue collar profession. I think that um, a lot of people just sort of take it for granted or think that it's just, I don't know what, we're off wearing a beret doing a watercolor of our spirit animal or something. But creativity is a lot of work. And I think that's something that I've been able to harness in my career and my clients and a lot of the work I do.
Great. Question three, why this of all things? Why do you do what you do?
Oh, I think it's sort of like what you said in the intro. I don't know that I really had any choice. I grew up with two parents that were both creatives, that were both artists and designers. My dad ran an advertising agency here in Pittsburgh. My mom was a soft sculpture artist who made like puppets and toys and things like that by hand. So they met in art school. So that was just the environment I grew up in. So I think that for me, being creative, being around design, doing things like that, I've known my entire life. So yeah, I don't think anybody was surprised when I went to art school and started doing this.
Great. And some people struggle with number four, but the question is, what does your future look like?
I think that for me, the future for me is always evolution. That what shape that's going to take changes constantly, thanks to technology, thanks to culture, thanks to everything else. But I think for me, that's always been the mark of my work. That's always been the mark of what I love to do, is that I'm not really precious about much of anything. So again, nobody would ever look at my career path and tell you it was a good idea. It's never really made sense. That's not the way I've ever built my career. This step's going to lead to this one. So yeah, I think for me, it's finding good problems and finding ways to keep pushing myself and getting better and being different.
Nice, I love it. Number five, we say is unique to this show. The question is, let's talk about location. How does the notion of place play into what you do?
I think that for me, that's probably comes in a couple different ways. One, I am a digital nomad. I know we'll talk about that later. I've been remote for 7.5 years. I think that for me, it's always been one, I've constructed my studio, my offices, everything else to be a place that I feel instantly creative whenever I walk into. So I think creating a place where great ideas are likely or can be inspired is really important. But I think for me, I've also been something where place is very important to understand who I'm designing for, because I think whenever you're making anything, it's very easy to sort of assume that you are your customer. And so whenever I've designed for automotive brands, I go to showrooms and gas stations and all sorts of things like that. So I think that for me, it's always getting out and doing the things or experiencing the things and finding interesting opportunities in the place where the thing I'm going to be designing takes place, as opposed to just sort of making broad assumptions around that. So I think that's always been something I feel like is a little bit different, is again not just reading an article or googling something and assuming I understand it.
Great. So six, if you had to start from the beginning, what advice would you give your former younger self?
There's not a right way to do this. I think that when I talk to so many young creatives, there's this kind of feeling that there's a right way to have a career, there's a right way to go about things, or you're supposed to have everything figured out. that's not the case. I think I got trapped in that in my career for a long time, thinking that I had to be somebody that I wasn't. But again, I think that you always have the ability to evolve. You always have the ability to try something different. Like I said before, nobody would ever look at my career path and tell you it was a good idea. So I think it's once it works, then everybody knew all along. But that it's okay to be different. It's okay to have a different skill set than everybody else. That there's so much pressure to try to blend in and have your work and everything look like everybody else. But creatively, I think that's kind of just the road to nowhere. So I think that's probably the biggest lesson I'd want to share.
Great. And seven, what's a day in your life like?
Oh, no 2 days are the same anymore. I think one, that's always the joy of just doing something creative. But I think that for me, this morning was doing meetings going over brand strategy. This afternoon was doing design work and, refining an AI LLM model. So I think a lot of with my work now is really just embracing the mess. I think that, for a lot of careers and things like that, people like little boxes or you do one thing. I've never been one of those people. I've never been somebody that fit neatly in one of those boxes. So I think that now that I'm doing my own thing and have my own shop, that it's really just embracing that mess and designing a brand or a website or a restaurant or an AI or anything else. Because I think that there's a huge amount of inspiration and energy that comes out of that diversity. So that's what I love is that no 2 days usually ever do look alike.
Great. So eight is around lifelong learning. It's a popular topic. How do you stay up to date?
Yeah, I think this is. I always cringe a little bit this question because like everybody says, what books are you reading? I stay up to date for me and doing those things through experiences and conversations. I really respond to and I really like learning, seeing new things, finding out different perspectives, gaining new knowledge, but also gaining context and understanding and insight from that. And I think there's an academic nature to books or some of those sort of things with from a very particular point of view. But I think that that's a lot of it for me is that I've constructed kind of my own support system of friends and things like that of going out trying different things, talking about different things. We have a very diverse group of people who all sort of share the creative condition. But, and then honestly, for me, it's just moving through the world and trying a lot of things and just seeing what feels interesting or different and filing that away and figuring out, when's that going to become relevant at some point down the road.
Great. So nine is about tools. Do you use both digital and analog tools?
Yes. No, I've always been that way. I think that, for me, I've always held on to the analog side. A lot of my work that I'm known for is in digital and doing a lot of those things. So I use the whole suite of digital tools and those sort of things. But I still, do a lot of sketching. I do a lot of hand drawing. I tend to write out a lot of problems and doing those sort of things because I think it helps me in processing what the problem is that both visually and strategically to be able to do that. So I think a lot of my process is digital, but like I said, there's still absolutely moments that I sort of try to fiercely protect to I mean, it's interesting. Like one of the big things I've tried to do over the last couple of years is just try to be deliberately bored more often, because I think a lot of times digital tools can occupy every moment of your day, and I think that's one of the nice things around sketching or journaling or doing things like that is it opens up some space for your brain to just think and breathe and be creative.
Great. And halfway number 10, how do you deal with work life or life work balance?
I think that for me, it's leaning into the second part of that is balance. I think for a long time, I've embraced the fact that being creative is a condition, not a job. That it's not something you do from 9 to 5. I don't, kind of shut down my computer at the end of the day and go, okay, look, I'm not creative. That I think it is about balance. I think that it's a lot of recognizing that there are times when I do need to sort of lose myself. I need to go deep on a project. I need to think something through and just sort of get lost in it, but I think there are other times where stepping away also does a lot of good for my creativity. I think that there are times I've struggled with work-life balance for sure, but even in the recognition of that, I've done things like my wife has the ability, if she sees me sort of tipping out of control on that, to declare what we'll call like a mental health day, where we'll go have a good lunch or go to a museum or do something fun because it's just I'm leaned in too far, and sometimes I have trouble pulling back from that. So I think that that's what a lot of it is because I think when it comes to work life and imposter syndrome and a lot of other stuff around creativity, you're never going to get rid of it or solve it. It's just how do you try to find a good balance?
Great. So 11, if you weren't doing what you do now, what might you be doing?
Ooh. Number one answer would probably be either like a chef or running a restaurant or doing something like that. I'm somebody that most nights I love to cook just because it so much of the creative work that I do takes days, weeks, months, years to be able to do. So cooking's become a really nice escape for that. So that's something I love to do, cooking for myself or friends or things like that. Or probably just go full analog and be either some sort of an artist, painter, probably like street artist, something like that. Just because again, that's something else that I really love.
Great. And what would you not like to do with your career?
For me, what I hate is I hate paperwork. I hate small talk. I hate wasting time. I like inspiration and creativity and those sort of things, but I'm not somebody that's good at treading water or just going in and moving something from A to B just because somebody tells me to. I think for me, this is more my life's work than something like that. So I think that yeah, that anything where it's just kind of going through the motions, I hate.
Great. And 13, do you have a favorite word, quote, or sentence?
Let's see. I'll go with word. I think my favorite word is trust because I think that look, if you want to do anything creative, you want to do anything innovative, you want to do anything that means anything, you it comes down to trust. You need clients who trust you, you need a team that you trust, you need that's the only way any of those things ever see the light of day. So I think that to me is the center of everything and whenever I have it, it's one of the things that I absolutely love the most.
Great. And how about a least favorite word, quote, or sentence?
Oh, that's easy. So my least favorite word I've had a war against this. This was actually the first episode of my podcast was dedicated to this word, which is the word light bulb. I freaking hate the word light bulb because I hate that it is ubiquitous with creativity and the creative process. Like somehow we all just sit around and wait for the clouds to part and it like rains champagne and puppies and you have this moment of clarity where everything makes sense. I think it diminishes what creativity actually is and all the work that goes into it. So yeah, I've had a war against the word light bulb for that reason.
Okay. And you're choosing one word to describe yourself. What word do you choose?
I mean, the easy one's crazy just because I think that that's kind of my brand. But I think the word that I think probably would best describe me, let's go with inevitable because I
Hmm.
think that look, I've always felt like I'm not the most creative guy in the world. I'm not the most strategic guy in the world. I think I'm probably better than average, but I will put in the work and do what needs to get done to figure it out or to do those sort of things so that it that it's trusting that process and just knowing if I keep working at it, we'll all get there.
And what keeps you up at night?
Probably the inverse of that. I think just being irrelevant. I think with what it is that I do, that there's so much of wanting to have an insight or have a perspective or have an idea or something like that. So again, I think that's always one of those fears or something that keeps you up at night is just, do you still have it? Because yesterday's home runs don't win tomorrow's games. So you have to keep proving it. But yeah, I think probably irrelevance.
Great. And final stretch here. What's a dream you're chasing?
Oh, here again, like the easy answer is I'm chasing the dream of a consistent new business pipeline. But what I would say is I think the dream that I'm chasing over the last year or so has honestly been, and it may sound weird, it's been chasing kind of destroying the image that I think people have of me because in going through the journey of building my own studio and doing a lot of these things, I kept getting a lot of comments from people who are like, "Oh, you can work wherever you want, or you can do whatever you want." And I realized I'd created a really toxic construct. I think a lot of more senior people do. That there was some like somehow I'd made it. I can do whatever I want. I'm immune from imposter syndrome and those sort of things, which just isn't true. So I think that in a lot of ways I've been trying to kind of destroy my brand or do things like that. I recently burned down my entire personal website and rebuilt it with like a failure resume because I just this idea that somehow you escape these problems at some point is, and I think that's my dream, is that more people and more creatives are comfortable with themselves and own who they really are and have more of a voice in what they do. So I think that that's what a lot of my work over the last, what, 5 or 10 years is really centered around.
Nice. And 18, what inspires you?
Oh, nothing's more inspiring for me than a problem that scares me. I think the ability to do something that I haven't done before, to be able to kind of know that, look, I feel like I've got the skills or something like that, but I haven't really done this, or this is a big swing. That's the moment I love, is setting off on that journey to go take on something that, again, I kind of feel like I know if I do the process I'm going to get it there, but I don't have a clue how I'm going to get there. That's just the best moment.
Great. And last couple here. Any advice you'd like to share?
Yeah, I think that a lot of it, it's interesting because I think a lot of it for me lately with, there's so many people I've been talking to who have been trying to figure out what's next in their career or what should they do with their job or a lot of those sort of things. I find myself sort of giving the same piece of advice over and over again, that I think for a lot of people, it's remembering that success is a concept that I think only exists in hindsight. That when I was going to start my own studio, nobody was like, yeah, that's a good idea. Once it worked, everybody knew it all along. But I think that there's so many things that I've done, and there's so many of those moments that when you're doing it, when you're trying it, when you're doing something different, when you're taking a risk, it never feels like success in the moment. But once you land it, once it works, once it does whatever it is, and you sort of grind through it, then and you look back, then everybody knew it all along. But again, I think that sometimes the best things that you do or the biggest risks you take or the biggest wins you have might not feel like it in the moment, but whenever you look back on them, just they're the best.
Great. And finally, number 20, how can our listeners keep tabs on you and what's our call to action?
So for me, I think, one of the easy ways, so I've had my own podcast for the last 9 years called The Crazy One. So you can always find me there. We're about 140 some odd episodes in there. That's a show where we talk about creativity, leadership, all the sort of things that matter to creative people. So you can find me there at thecrazyone.com. It's the crazy and the number one.com. Or for the design side at Crazy Design, which is just CRZY design.com to be able to do that. And look, and I think, for me, the call to action always is like, if you've got a great problem, you've got a great conversation, you've got a problem you're trying to solve. Like, again, that's the stuff that I love. So feel free to reach out. I always love a good conversation.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining today. It's great to speak to a fellow podcaster. Thanks.
Sure thing.